guys, it is Tamara. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. Welcome back. Today I'm going to throw in a little bit of a different mix because what I want to do is get us a little bit away from talking about techniques and going back into theory. I'm of the firm belief as a provider that theory helps us lay the groundwork. It helps us figure out ourselves before we can actually figure out a way to help ourselves, right? We kind of need to know ourselves before we can figure out how to help ourselves. So I want to go back to a little bit of theory, and I want to talk about the shaping experiences that we have in our lives that has a major impact on how we develop throughout the lifespan, what we're going to be like when we, become adults and grow up. So it's important that we focus on this. So I want to focus on that today in this video. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel for those who are subscribed. And for those who are new, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button right over here so that you can stick around with us and be a part of our growing community, ask questions, participate, and suggest topics. In April, I'm going to be going back to the topic of trauma, but I'm going to be highlighting and zoning in on intergenerational trauma and the components of that. So if you're interested, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and stick around because I'm going to have a live April video as well that's going to allow you to communicate with me and ask questions, okay? So the benefits for you in today's video is that we're going to focus on the shaping experiences that we all tend to experience growing up and which ones of those shaping experiences can lead to a negative adult life, right? Or adulthood. Apologies for that, guys. There's a truck outside my window. I have to find a new YouTube slot for sure. Or spot to do my videos, I should say. But okay, so let's just go ahead and jump in, okay? So when I'm talking to parents who are trying to figure out their children and they have absolutely no idea why their kid is exhibiting certain behaviors and thought patterns and, why they're, emulating and mimicking them, why they've developed this oppositional defiant personality, why they've developed sexually maladaptive behaviors at a young age, I try to help them understand that this is not all one component. It's not all what the child has seen, what the child has overheard. It's not all of what the child has been around, which are environmental and learning experiences, but sometimes it's a combination of genes and environment. Okay, so there's a genetic component and there's also an environmental component as well. And so when you put those two things together, you are likely to come up with a result. And that result may be an individual who has been shaped by genetics and environment. Children who are born into this world, they are very sensitive to the visual and sensory and olfactory and auditory stimulation that they are around. They're used to being encased in this this fluid in the mother's womb, okay? And they're used to really being catered to, and they're used to being pampered, and they're used to being loved and being taken care of. So when they're born, they're kind of going through a shock period, I often see newborns crying as a sign that they are now alive and they are now being shocked out of this, secluded, secure space. And now they have to come into this world and be bothered by sights and other sensory stimulation. During that period, okay, when that baby is an infant and they come into the world, they're automatically being shaped by the experience of their environment. Because, if you think about it, when a mother has a baby, what's the first thing that the doctor does with the baby in regards to the mother? What happens? Well, I'm going to give you the answer. So what happens is the doctor ends up putting the baby on the mother's chest or getting skin to skin contact. And the whole reason for that is a shaping experience. The doctor is trying to permit or allow a shaping experience between the mother and the child and even the father as well. So, early experiences are extraordinarily important. That's why children who have been traumatized, abused, or neglected are shaped by that experience. And it's really hard for them to get out of that experience psychologically and emotionally as they develop over time because they've been shaped by it. So whatever you have come in contact with as a child, you have been shaped by that, whether that's, again, psychological, emotional, physiological, environmental, right? Whatever it is, biological, you've been shaped by it. So let's go down a few ways that you most likely have been shaped by your environment. And what I'm really zoning in on in this video is the traumatic side of being shaped. Okay, not just being shaped in a general sense, but the traumatic pieces of being shaped. okay? So let's just start with that, okay? The first thing that is likely to shape your experience throughout the lifespan and cause for you difficulty as an adult is strict parents. Strict parents, we're not talking those helicopter parents that are constantly watching you, you know? We're talking about those parents who, you know, use corporal punishment in a severe fashion to influence you. We're talking about corporal punishment that has been used to intimidate you, okay? We're talking about strict parents who locked you in your bedroom and wouldn't let you out, period, for hours, who slid your food under the door and talked to you like you were a dog, right? We're talking about parents who locked you in a cage and wouldn't open it. We're talking about parents who may have molested you and dared you to tell, or they would kill you. Those kind of strict parents, abusive, emotionally unstable, and psychopathic parents can shape you. The experiences that you are going through with that parent shapes you. It shapes you and molds you like clay. And you begin to develop a thought process. You begin to develop an emotional response system that is shaped by that experience, right? So it may not be very healthy. It may be, very polarized or black and white, one-sided. It may be very unstable, right? Your mindset and your emotions, but you've been shaped by those strict parents in a way that is not healthy. All right. The second thing that may shape you is overly high expectations or unrealistic expectations. Okay. So the parent that you grew up under, or the relationship that you are currently in has overly high and unrealistic expectations. Those things shape you, right? Because everything that you do is often reinforced by that individual who is shaping you. So let's say, for example, you're growing up in a household where your mother or your father wanted you to be this perfect child. Well, everything that you did that they didn't like, they scolded you for it, right? So they're shaping your behavior right there. They're trying to get your behavior to mold to what they want from you and what they like, okay? So they shaped your behavior by punishing you. But when they rewarded the good behavior, right? You working yourself to death, you becoming a type A personality, you not being able to rest and relax until something is done, you keeping things spotless and clean, right? When you would do those things, for example, that would be reinforced by positive behaviors, praise, right? Love, sometimes physical affection, all of those things. So that experience is shaping you and molding you like clay. The next thing that I want you to think about when you're thinking about experiences that has shaped you is abuse, neglect, and trauma. So when you are a child and you are depending on that adult in your life, that guardian, that parent, to protect you, to love you, to comfort you, to give you all the things that you need to survive, and that doesn't happen, that's a traumatic experience. And so being abused, whether that's sexually, physically, emotionally, psychologically, right? Any kind of abuse, right? Any form of abuse, any form of neglect. So, not having the clothing and the food that you need, not having your basic needs met, right? Not having the love and the affection from your parent that you need, having a mentally ill parent who is also very cold and very callous and detached from you and kind of pushes you away, right? Those kind of parents, and also traumatic experience, right? So a rape, a murder, a terrible car crash, whatever that trauma may be, abuse, neglect, trauma, it all has a way of shaping you. So whether that occurs as an adult or a child, it doesn't matter. As an adolescent, it's still a shaping experience, right? It's molding you and bending and molding the clay into what you're likely to come out to be as you get older, or what you're likely to become as an adult, I should say. All right. So abuse, neglect, and trauma has an interesting way that it molds you and it shapes you. And it really does prepare you for that end result, which is that adulthood, whatever that's going to be. Some people turn out to be substance abusers. Other people turn out to be prostitutes. Other people turn out to be criminals and murderers. Some are going to struggle over their lifetime with mental illness and drugs, right? So, it's sad. Sometimes you roll the dice and, you come up with the right hand and you were able to fight and push through and supersede and succeed. But then, you roll the dice and the end result is not that good, right? You're in rehabs and you're prostituting and you're selling drugs and you're doing criminal things, and you're dealing with trauma and you're dealing with PTSD, you're dealing with depression, right? So that end result from that shaping experience can be either positive or negative, and that's the scary part. All right. The next thing that I want you to think of is detached parents. Detached parents really do shape and mold you. Traumatic bonding is kind of like a subcategory of emotionally detached parents, and what happens here is the parent abuses you emotionally, physically, sexually, and then shows you a very nice parental side of themselves. And so you become stuck between two individuals, right? The mean parent, the good parent, the mean parent, the loving parent, the detached parent, and the very, very, very connected parent. And so instead of you accepting that, okay, I have these two opposing characters in my parent, and I see them in a very skewed way, instead of acknowledging that, you go over to this side, which is the safer side, and all you want to see is that good parent. And so the traumatic bond happens there because the situation is traumatizing to you, but you bond to them no matter how abusive they are, no matter how neglectful they are, no matter how unstable they are. You bond to them, you cling to them because you need that good side of them, and you totally ignore the fact that they have a bad side to them. All right. So emotionally detached or psychologically detached parents can mold you and shape you. And so what ends up happening in these situations is you're molded and you're shaped into an individual who is afraid of abandonment. You're afraid of change. You're afraid of your own limitations. You might also be afraid to have relationships with other people, right? You're very impulsive. You may hide. You may isolate and withdraw. You're probably very depressed, right? Those kind of characteristics are often the end result of having this back and forth kind of a parent. And children who grow up under traumatic bonding and very detached parents, they do struggle with abandonment and relationships, okay? The next thing is mental health. A parent who is mentally ill or mentally unhealthy and they refuse to do anything about it can mold you. They mold you into an individual who either has those very same dysfunctional and toxic characteristics, or they mold you into taking on the mindset that you don't need help for your mental health condition, right? Or they abuse you and manipulate you so much with their own mental health condition that you can't put yourself forward in the world in a healthy fashion, in a confident fashion, because now you're afraid and you have a defensive wall up, right? You're trying to make sure that you guard yourself from having any more painful experiences. And so, having these kind of parents, and I'm talking about parents who are mentally ill and mentally unhealthy and they know it and won't get help. It's really difficult for you to assert yourself, right? Or to be confident and healthy because they've molded you with their behaviors and their lack of attention to their own need. They've molded you to see life a certain way, and so now the way that you see life may be a little bit skewed. All right. The next one is, let's see, what do I have here? Constant conflict or domestic violence. That's another thing that I have on my list here. I think it's really important to keep in mind that domestic violence is just not dad beating up mom. Domestic violence is just not mom and dad having a physical altercation. Domestic violence is a very emotional and psychologically traumatic event. And what happens in these kind of events is the child is often left alone to make sense out of what has just happened. If you think about it, dad comes in the house drunk, mom is tucking you in and putting you to bed, dad's drunk, okay? Dad wants something from mom, whether that's sex or money or attention. Mom has to tend to you as son or daughter. Dad does not get what he wants, so then dad tries to force what he wants, and mom has to fight back and say, no, I don't have the time, or I can't sit with you right now, I can't talk with you right now, I don't have the money, or I can't do this with you right now, let's do something else. So okay, dad is starting to feel threatened, he's starting to feel reduced, minimized, unimportant, and so he slaps your mom, and then before your mom can fight back, he grabs her by her clothing, and now he's shoving her up against the door. Well, as a child, you're hearing all of this stuff, and now your mind has to try to really alter itself to figure out, wait a minute, what am I hearing here? What's going on? And then when it occurs to you that mom's in pain, or mom's hurting, or something traumatic is happening, then, your little mind as the child has to try to figure out, well, what do I do? And then once you figure out what you can and cannot do, now you have to figure out, how can this not happen again? And will it happen again? Right? So that whole scenario, that whole process that your mind has to go through is very traumatic. And so in domestic violence households, those experiences shape the child to be afraid of relationships. They also shape the child to be afraid of closeness and love and attachment. And so the child then grows up into an adult who has maybe very similar relationships, or who may avoid relationships because of fear of abandonment. The list goes on. So it gets really murky. Shaping experiences are extraordinarily important in understanding what has traumatized you, and really in helping you understand how to make sense out of your own reactions to life and to things. These shaping experiences, okay, I want you to think of it in terms of like shaping clay, right? Shaping or molding clay. These experiences shape you. And until you recognize and are able to figure out the impact of these shaping experiences, you're most likely going to be confused about your own trauma, and you're also most likely to be confused about the kind of help that you need. So I hope that this video was helpful and insightful to you. I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about a couple of other techniques and things that may be helpful to you. Before the month of March is over, I want to talk to you about 2 other trauma techniques and tools that you might be interested in pursuing for your own care. So we're going to talk about that in the next video. Thank you so much for being with me today, guys, in this video. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you, and go ahead and share it with someone as well if you think they would benefit from knowing about these shaping experiences and how they are impacted by them. And go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you want to stick around and see the next video. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video.